This book is called Town Mouse, Country Mouse. It's by one of our favorite authors, Jan Brett. She also wrote The Mitten, The Hat, and the version of the 12 Days of Christmas that we read at Christmas time. She's not only an author, but she's a beautiful illustrator or artist. And we talked about how she includes such beautiful pictures around the border of the pages in the story that tell us about things that happened on the previous pages, that tell us about different animals and plants that are in the environment that she's talking about. So while I'm reading the book, I'd like you to pay close attention to the beautiful illustrations or pictures. And I'd like you to listen for why the town mouse and the country mouse wanted to move. What did they find out when they moved? And why did they return back to their homes? What was different about the town and the country? You may have heard the saying, there's no place like home. And I know when I've been away on a trip, I love to go away on a trip, but I always love to come home. Yeah. You may have also heard the grass is always greener on the other side. Sometimes we forget about what we have and how we love it and how we should be thankful. And we look at what someone else has, or we look at some different place and we think it might be better. Well, you listen for how the town mouse and the country mouse found out that they really loved the home that they had and they were thankful for it. Town Mouse, Country Mouse by Jan Brett. You can see some of the beautiful pictures of the town and the country. One morning, the town mouse woke up shivering from a dream about the kitchen cat who prowled the house. I need a vacation, he said to his wife. Let me take you to see the countryside where I was born. Life is quiet and peaceful there. The sun shines brightly every day, and the air is so clear that you can see the stars at night. And nothing will prepare you for the taste of wild blackberries. Let's go right away, she said. So the town mouse and his wife packed a picnic and set off for the country. And there they are. The country mouse and her husband were at their tree stump house, exhausted from searching for food and avoiding the hungry owl who lived nearby. Sometimes I wish we lived in a townhouse where all the food you can eat is right there in the pantry. They say that the smell of cheese makes your whiskers tingle. Mine are tingling already, her husband exclaimed. So there's the country mouse, the country mice. The town mice were outside the country mice's house, putting a huge chunk of cheese in the middle of their picnic cloth. The country mice peered down at it. They heard the town mouse exclaim, "This is the life, wildflowers, spring peepers. If only we lived here." The country mice crept out. "You like it here?" they asked. "Why, we've always wanted to live in a townhouse." The town mouse offered them a nibble of cheese. "Why don't we trade houses?" he said. "Would you?" asked the country mouse, her mouth full of delicious cheese. "We'll leave right away," she said. As they said goodbye, each of the mice thought that they had the better part of the bargain. So there they are, talking about how they want to trade houses. You can see some of the country plants and animals. Here's an owl, some pine cones, some vines around the outside. It was dark when the country mice arrived in town and found the house. They tiptoed inside and wandered into the sewing room, where they found what they thought was a sumptuous bed and fell sound asleep. Much too early the next morning, a loud clanging woke them up. Sooty clouds of smoke were pouring over them, and they heard a strange voice purring loudly. Sauces and ham, it's hungry I am. Sauces and ham, it's hungry I am. Mice in my stew, wait till I catch you. Who do you think that is? The country mouse asked his wife. There's the hungry cat looking at them. They're sleeping in a shoe. And here's the cat getting his pot on the stove ready. What do you think he's wanting to put in there? The town mouse and his wife were up with the birds, ready to gather wild berries in the grassy meadow for breakfast. They could smell them. They just couldn't find them. As the town mouse wife turned to remind her husband to remember the way home, she felt a large wet drop on her head. What was that? She asked. Is the bathtub leaking? No, we're in the country now, he said. Those are raindrops. Just then lightning lit up the sky and the rain poured down as the two drenched mice ran wildly for their tree stump home. The country mice were looking forward to their first splendid meal in the pantry. I'm sure there's a ham in the ice chest and rolls in the bread box, but the best smell of all is coming from up there, the country mouse told her husband. It must be a fine old cheese. I'll climb up on your shoulders and get it. But she couldn't quite reach it. Stand on your toes, she called. But just as she got a hold of the cheese, her husband lost his balance. The top slammed down and she was left hanging by her tail. Help me! Help me! I'm caught! And there's different things that you might see in the pantry. There's some macaroni and some onions, a lemon. Oh, and a kitty cat. And there she is. Her tail is caught on the jar of oil. And everything seems to be tumbling down beside her. Back in the country, the town mouse had put on his dry clothes. He was especially proud of his bright new jacket. So colorful and eye-catching, he said to his wife. Let's stroll in the forest. We'll come back loaded with acorns and hickory nuts. But their walk was soon interrupted. The town mouse's colorful coat was so eye-catching that it caught the eye of a curious blackbird. And if his wife hadn't held him by his foot, he would have been carried off. That sounds kind of scary. Not far away in town, the country mouse felt his wife's silky tail. Nothing broken, he said, but when he looked in her eyes, he saw how sad and discouraged she was. I know something that will cheer us up, he told her. Follow me. He had spied a small window up above the pantry shelves. Together they climbed higher and higher. When they reached the top, he rubbed away the soot, and they looked out at a piece of blue sky. Doesn't it look like home? He said. There they are sitting on some beautiful teacups, looking out at the blue sky, starting to miss being at their country home where they saw blue sky everywhere. And on the side you can see some broken teacups from when she's falling down. The town mice stood quietly together after their awful blackbird scare. I thought I had lost you forever, the town mouse whispered to her husband. They looked around. How still and peaceful it was now. The sun had come out and everything was glistening and green. It is beautiful here, she said. We should try to enjoy it. I know, the town mouse said, but I miss the sound of the town. All the hustle and bustle. Here I feel so alone. And in our cozy townhouse, we knew what to expect, his wife added. So there's some beautiful flowers and animals on the sides of these pages. Here's a beautiful illustration of an owl and some flowers. And over here, there's a fox and an eagle and some more flowers. And the town mice are talking to each other, feeling a little bit calmed down after the bird scare, and they're talking about how they miss the noises of when they lived in the town. They're feeling that it might be a little bit too quiet in the country. The country mice knew to stay at home in a thunderstorm, and they knew what to expect from the hungry owl. But they soon found out that there were different dangers here when they discovered a tasty morsel of blue cheese sitting on a pine board. Uh-oh. This time you take the cheese. I'm still shaking from being caught in the cheese box, the country mouse said. So her husband crept toward the cheese, whiskers trembling. As he reached it, his foot slipped and he heard a whoosh, followed by an enormous snap. What was the pine board that the cheese was on? He was thrown across the room. He landed in a warm bundle of something soft and furry. You guessed it, it was a mousetrap. He just missed being caught in the mousetrap because he tripped just before he was about to reach the cheese. Whoa. There's the cat lapping at them on the side. And I wonder what he landed on that was soft. The country mouse was shaking from his close call. I can barely stand, he winced as his wife pulled him up and patted down his crumpled whiskers. It was then that she noticed the bundle on which her husband had landed was tipping and turning. It was alive. Two green eyes snapped open. Run, she cried, getting a good look at it. It's an owl with teeth. Was it an owl? It looks more like a cat to me. The town mice knew how to avoid mousetraps set with cheese, but they soon found that the country had its own perils when they explored the riverbank, hand in hand. Suddenly, the water began to boil and churn, and a huge wet head popped up and stared at them. It was a river otter. The mice tore back to their tree stump home, only to find a hedgehog rolled into a ball in front of the door. Then they heard an animal crashing towards them under the brush. I can't take this anymore, the town mouse quaked, and she raced for the nearest tree with her husband right behind her. There's the river otter on this side, and here's the hedgehog blocking the hole to their tree house. And here is, what's this one? There's another animal. Do you think that's a skunk? Well, I think the town mice were finding that they weren't used to all these animals. From the tree, they could see the town lights blink on as the sun went down, and the stars came out one by one. What shall we do? The town mice asked his wife. They still couldn't get into their home, and it was getting dark. But before she could answer, she saw a pair of glowering eyes right beside them, and they were face to face with the most terrifying creature of all. A cat with wings, shrieked the town mouse. Do you think it's really a cat with wings? That's it for me, his wife cried, and they ran down the tree and toward the town as fast as their legs could take them. What was it? They thought it was a cat with wings because they were used to seeing cats in town, but it was really an owl. And there they are running back home to town, away from the country and all the animals. As the town mice headed frantically along the road, the country mice were fleeing in terror towards the country. Their paths crossed, but neither saw each other. They were so frightened. Even the sky seemed to be falling down on them. The country mice didn't stop running. until they could see their tree stump in the distance. And there's the mice running in different directions. The country mice running to the town, and the town mice running to the town, back to the town, and the country mice running back to the country. They were so scared they didn't even see each other. And it looks like the cat and the owl were also scared by each other because they weren't used to seeing each other. There's different animals in town than there are out in the country. The town mice kept on running until they reached their town home. The musty smell of the old wood and smoke from the kitchen all seemed wonderful. Even the street sounds outside sounded cheerful and friendly. There's no place like home, sighed the town mouse as he and his wife settled into a warm old slipper. There's no place like home. And there they are, settled into their slipper in their town house. Atop their cozy tree stump house, the country mouse and her husband looked up at the full moon shining down on them, and they sighed happily, "We missed you," to the moon. Back on the road, the cat and the owl had knocked each other out when they collided head on. The cat, slowly waking up, touched his bruised head gingerly. He looked up to see the owl brushing himself off. It was then that he had an idea. "Owl, how would you like to trade places with me? I've always wanted to try the simple life in the country." Oh my goodness. It didn't work out so well with the town and country mice trading spaces. What do you think will happen if the owl and the cat trade places? That might be another story for another time. So, why do you think the country mice were not afraid of the animals in the country? Why do you think the town mice were not afraid of the things that were in their own home, like the country mice were? Afraid of the mousetrap and the high shelves. Do you think it's because they were used to where they lived and they knew how to stay safe? And the different sounds, why do you think the hustle and bustle of the town sounded beautiful and peaceful to the town mice, and the quiet, still outdoors was peaceful and calming to the country mice? Maybe because they'd grown up in different places and were used to different animals, they were used to different sounds, they were used to different homes. Well, the next time that we're tempted to look at what someone else has and think we're missing out, let's stop and remember to be thankful for what we have, and remember how much we love our own home, our own family, and everything that God has given to us. I hope you enjoyed that story, and that's our last story for Circle Time this week. I hope you've learned many different things and had fun listening to these different stories as we've shared time together again. Bye for now.